Hi there, it's Dawn McVeigh with Make It Monday. I've got a really fun heat embossing project to share with you today using clear embossing powder. Using clear embossing powder is one of my favorite techniques because you don't ever have to worry about whether or not the color of the powder is going to match your cardstock or whether the color of the ink is going to work or clash. The clear embossing powder picks up the color in whatever cardstock you're working with and just intensifies that color, so you know you're going to have a perfect match every time. So to get started, I've got my Background Basics newsprint stamp set and a piece of cardstock. This is craft cardstock that I've cut to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. I'm going to ink up the headline image with Versamark ink and stamp it right across the top of the cardstock. Now, if you're fast enough, you can go ahead and stamp the next 2 strips. This is the text image from that same set. You can go ahead and stamp the next 2 images back to back before you heat emboss. Or if you feel like you're a little bit slower, or maybe you're having a hard time seeing where things are lined up, it's okay to go ahead and heat emboss these one row at a time before you move on. But for purposes of the video and to kind of keep things moving along, I'm going to go ahead and stamp all 3 images, and then I'll heat emboss them all at the same time. Now I've got a bit of black cardstock that I just use as a scrap, kind of a catch-all for all of this excess powder that's going to fall off the cardstock here. Just sprinkle on. This is Papertrey's filigree detail embossing powder. And I want to turn it over and just give it a few flicks on the back of the cardstock just to get any excess powder off. And now heat set with your heat tool. It usually takes 5 seconds or so for the heat tool to heat up and work its magic, so just give it a minute, and there you can see it's starting to harden up that powder. It just melts it nice and quick and makes a really shiny, detailed texture on the card. It's really pretty in real life. So now I'm just going to pour that excess powder right back into the jar because we're going to use that a couple more times here before we put it away. Now I've got a strip of Aqua Mist cardstock that was die cut with the small scalloped border die. I've cut this strip to 5 1/2 inches so that it's perfectly sized for my card front. But this also allows me to see exactly where I need to place the sentiment that I'm stamping now. That's the Happy Birthday sentiment from the Enjoy the Ride stamp set. And same deal. I stamped it with Versamark ink, added a bit of embossing powder, and now I'm going to heat it up with the heat tool. And we're going to pour that powder back in one more time. This time I've got a bit of Raspberry Fizz cardstock that was die cut with the Friendly Flower die. And I'm pulling out the Tagits number 2 stamp set because I want to use that big circle tag image to put a really pretty polka dot detail around the petals of the flower. So one more time, we'll ink this up with Versamark ink and stamp it right in the center of the flower. Now for this little flower, I recommend using tweezers to hold on to it, just because the powder is going to be right up to the edge of those petals and it's not going to leave you a whole lot of finger room to avoid burning yourself. So tweezers work great for holding things in place so you can heat emboss. Cutie cute. Now you can put that embossing powder away because we're done with it now. So now I've got my card base that I've cut and scored from Vintage Cream cardstock. And if I can get this adhesive to work, I'm going to adhere the panel directly to the front of the card. So now same deal, we're just going to adhere that strip of Aqua Mist cardstock right across the front of the card. Now I want to dress up the flower just a bit by adding a button to the center. So I've picked out a great big pure poppy button, and I've got a bit of chocolate baker's twine that I'm going to use to stitch the button to the flower. But first I'm going to pull out my paper piercer pad and paper piercer tool, and I'm just going to use that to punch the holes out ahead of time. It just makes it a lot easier to stitch through the cardstock if the button holes are pre-punched out. So I started with my thread going through from the front of the button to the back of the button, and then I'm going to come up to the front, back down to the back, and then I'm going to end coming up on the front side of the button again. By doing it this way, it'll allow me to have both of those twine tails on the front side of the flower so that I can tie a little bow on the front of the flower. So now the flower is ready to go, but I want to add some leaves behind the flower. So I've got a bit of rustic cream cardstock that I die cut with one of the new Turning a New Leaf dies. And I've got the coordinating stamp image here from the Turning a New Leaf stamp set. I'm just going to ink that up with some Aqua Mist ink and stamp it right on my little die cut leaves. Now I'm just going to take a bit of score tape and put a little piece of it on the front of the leaves down on the bottom, and that will allow me to tuck the leaves behind the flower so that the flower and the leaves are stuck together before I adhere them to the card. That way I can see exactly where I want everything to be lined up on my card. I can get the leaves just where I want them, place the flower over the top of it, and once I have it all situated, then I can kind of mush those two together. And now I just need to add some foam adhesive to the back of the two of them, and they're ready to be stuck back on the card front. Just an easy way to kind of line things up before you're fully committed to being stuck to the front of the card. So now we'll just peel off those paper backs and stick it on the front of the card. Now one last finishing detail. I've got some pearlized straight pins that I bought at Michael's. I believe Dritz is the maker, D-R-I-T-Z. I've got a red pin and a pink one that I want to use. And I'm just going to slide them between the flower and the leaf. The main thing you're going for here is to just kind of wedge them into the adhesive on the back side of the flower, whether it be the foam adhesive or the score tape, just so that it's secure and they're not going to fall out. And there you have it. Heat embossed background, heat embossed sentiment, and heat embossed flower. We'd love to see your heat embossed projects, so if you decide to play along with this week's Make It Monday challenge, be sure to head over to Nicole Hetty's blog so you can upload your project, because we'd love to see it. Thanks a lot for spending a little bit of your time with me today. This is Dawn McVeigh for Make It Monday. Have a great week, guys.